let us get started. The first thing that stands out to me is the use of lines, which I don't want to take away from. It's your style. I want to keep it. But I also want to add supportive edges to it, edges that support your work, that make it look more complete. And they're less stylistic choices and more just it feels like you forgot about them. But one of the most important ones that feels like it's missing is the eye socket. Now there's two ways to do the eye socket. You can do the eye socket by making the eyelid dark and the upper space light, like that. And then you have more of a line formation here for the eye socket. So you have that option. Or you have the option of making it so that the upper eyelid bone structure is dark. And so I'm receding the values until I reach that bone and how it juts up against the eyelid. Do you see that? So you have different ways of producing the same result, but it all has to do with the fact that there is an edge here. So before, after, do you see that edge? Yeah, it does look like Katara, doesn't it? I think it is Katara. So we have this now, but right under it, I'm going to add more of that highlighter there. If it is Katara, do you think they were going for, I think they started it, but didn't really. I don't think they're going for the Asian eye. I can address the Asian eye as well. The Asian eye really just has to do with reducing or lowering the point of this edge right here so that you end up actually having no edge in the area. So can you see that? And instead of a shadow, this whole area is full of value. And so you get that hooded look. The eyebrows are also a little bit flatter on Asian eyes, so they have less of that curvature and more of kind of a flatter natural shape. And of course, the lower eyelid, it also doesn't have much of a shadow to it. And you don't have all this extra stuff here. This kind of carries down below. So I don't know which eye they meant for. So I'm just going to keep the one that I feel like they were trying to start, which is the one here, because it feels like they were trying to do an eye socket. So I don't know what the actress looks like in the Netflix adaptation. That abomination. And then we have the waterline. So there's the eye socket that was missing. Now we want the waterline back. The waterline is some of the only pink that you see on the face. It's so important to keep it visible because it helps you make sense of that place in the eye. The other thing would be the white of the eyes is just a little bit too dark. We want just a little bit of that back, or else it looks a little too shady, a little suspicious, and almost sickly. Like the character's been crying for hours about Palestine, which we should all be doing. And then I'm going to add that pink to the other side. All right, and then I'm going to add some white in the eye. She was brown in the animated show. So I don't remember, is she like Inuit like looking, like kind of northern or aboriginal looking or native looking? I forget the actress's face. I don't know if I'm mixing up the Katara from, actually no, that one straight up looked white, right? Okay, so now we have an eye socket on one eye. I'm going to go ahead and add the eye socket on the other eye as well. And we're just reddening that shadow. Oops. And I'm just adding that shadow. And this is another trick I do. I just get the, oh, I don't have one. Oh, I do. I get the hard round eraser. And I just click to erase. And it erases in a perfect arc. Do you guys see that? And it gives me those eye sockets back. So issues that I feel like are pulling the portrait down is how the eyebrows are really basically the focal point right now. They feel like a focal point because they're too sharp. The pencil brushes are too repetitive and they're all equally visible. Blur every other one. So blur, don't blur. Blur, don't blur. Blur, don't blur. So you're just kind of doing like a zigzaggy blur, don't blur effect. And that makes them a little bit easier to look at. They're not so distracting from the eye. We're trying to pull the attention always back to the eye. Another issue would be the hairline here. The hairline is also very sharp. And so I'm just going to blur that as well, blend it away. I'm sorry about my voice, you guys. I had a lot of classes today, back to back, and I'm losing my voice. Probably going to lose it by the end of class. And I'm just creating like a feathered effect so that we're not noticing the hairline as much. Okay, and so the sides of the nose you have here are a little bit too dark. The color is too similar to the eye socket, so we're going to raise that value up. I'm wondering, should I get the photo of the actual Kitaro from the show, or should I just respect this artist's style? I don't know, it does feel like we're kind of neglecting their style to do that. So I'm just going to leave it alone, I guess. I'll just work with what they have. I'm assuming this is just their fan art. Okay. So I got rid of that extra value sharing. And we can see how you're basically just outlining the nose. And the nose has a very dark value to it. It's a very ashy value. It doesn't need to be this color. It can be more of a red shadowy color. And to get rid of the outlining, all you have to do is literally just replace that with any value that is nearby. What carries the nose, what makes the nose feel like it's present, are either the sharpness of the nostrils or the highlight of the cheeks beside it. Those things can revive that edge that you lost, that you feel like you lost. Or just using the mid-tone itself instead of getting a highlighter, just sharpening this edge more. You'll get the nose back. You have a lot of line reliance, also known as line dependence in my channel. And that it's the best way to flatten your image and reduce anything that might have any kind of additional charm mixed in with your style. So it's nice to keep the lines as long as you have some kind of form, contour, structure. Right now, the only thing keeping you going is a random shade you add on the feature and the lines. You actually don't even have a nose bridge. There is no proper nose bridge here. It's just lines and the larger mid-tone. You need a nose bridge because whether or not you think it's important, it's still negative space when it comes to the face. What's negative space when it comes to the face? Negative space is the anatomy that's there, but we don't notice it the way we notice the eyes, the nose, and the mouth. The audio is cutting in and out. I'm not sure what's happening. I'm not getting... It's telling me my connection is excellent. Did you guys try restarting? I have no recommendation for bitrate or audio changes. It might be YouTube. Oh, okay. Do you guys want to restart? Maybe refresh your browser? Okay. All right. So back to this. So the negative space of the face, you actually did a really good job with the cheeks. You did a good job with the chin. But the nose, I'll show you guys right now the before and after. Because it's negative space, the student thinks, oh, it's inconsequential. I don't have to worry about that part of the face. It doesn't matter because it's hardly anything important happening there. Hi, Magical. And because nothing happens there, we don't really have to worry about adding any rendering importance to it. Let me show you how important it is to render the negative space of the face. All right, so we did the chin. We did the nose. We're going to do a little block right here on the forehead. All right, we're going to blend away the block. And you'll see how important it is to remember the substructure, the basic structure that builds everything out. All right, this is all just the negative space of the face, the unimportant stuff, the B-level detail stuff. Nothing really important goes on out here. And so the student just casually brushes it off. I can throw any mid-tone I like there. No one's going to notice. People are always looking for the detail. They're not really looking for the stuff that, has nothing going on, the empty dead zones. Let me show you what only sculpting the dead zones did for your image. All right. So I added a little bit of extra highlight to the upper lip. Oops, wrong brush. Alrighty, so let's show you. So let me see where I started doing that. All right, so this is around the area where I started adding the nose bridge. After. Okay. Before, after, before, after, before, after. So I'm not trying to change her complexion or anything. I just used the nearby highlighter. If you want to darken them back, you can. Do you see how before you had no anatomical data? It was just a dead zone. There was no distinction between bridge and side of the bridge and cheek. Everything was on the same flat line. But after, now we can see that everything builds up, builds down, elevations and depressions. We can see changes in the negative space. Just because this negative space here is boring and nothing really goes on doesn't mean there's no anatomy to render. Are you guys with me? Right, so this is a really important thing that changed my art as soon as I learned it. I used to look at artists' work, and this was the big giveaway. From a distance, the thumbnail, I used to be on DeviantArt when I was younger, and there used to be thumbnails for deviants of the day or daily deviants or something like that. Do you guys remember that? And the ones that used to get a daily deviation they looked so good. The little thumbnail looked so dang good. And when you zoom in, it still looks good. And I noticed that in mine from a distance looked like a muddy, crappy mess. Only when you zoomed in could you see little clusters of detail that were well rendered. I didn't know why that was happening. Why doesn't my art look good as a thumbnail, but it looks good zoomed in? Well, because I never gave value to the things that are the largest sections when we zoom out. When we zoom out, these are the largest areas: the cheek, the chin, the forehead, the nose negative space. These are the last things that stay. All the other detail disappears. So as an artist, you can't just focus only on the detail and neglect everything else. You have to remember the structure of the face. Has the style been damaged? Tell me, the audience, do you feel like the style has been damaged? So we did a bit of blending. We added some structure. I feel like the style has been enhanced, in my opinion, because I feel like there's more to look at. I'm sure others have different opinions about anime and rendering anime lines, and everyone's entitled to their opinion. But I don't think it was damaged. I think it was changed to be something else that is also great, but I don't think it was damaged. So at the least, you're getting an upgrade in the realism realm. And not just that, your skill looks great, looks good in a portfolio, you get hired to do a league splash. You're not going to get hired to do flat lines like this. You're going to get hired to do the structural stuff like this. This is the stuff that not a lot of people notice. I'm literally here showing you guys how to notice this stuff so your gallery looks like the ones they're looking for. And the ones they're looking for are the ones that pay attention to detail. Here's another really, really big detail that a lot of people forget. And this one I've repeated many times. I call it the beard shadow for a reason. It's just basically a big old beard you add to your character. And we don't add it just like that. We add it radially. So we're reducing our opacity and we do brushstroke number 1. The layer is on darken, number 2, number 3, and we're adding this beard that slowly recedes to the lower half of the face. Do you see that now? And what that will do is it'll make it feel like the face is turning away from the light. So in verse, what we do is we get an eraser and erase away with a blocking brush or whatever you want areas that do get access to the light. So the upper half of the lower lip, the upper lip, all these areas do have access. And I'm just smudging away and blending and incorporating all of that. So we get this beard shadow. And what that's doing is it's making it feel like the face is slowly receding away from the light. And we have to do the opposite. We have to make it feel like the face is slowly approaching the light. So I'm just going to find a peachy highlighter tone and a new layer. And I'm also just radially on top of everything. Remember, this is on top of everything, growing that high point of the sphere. And this is how we start adding three-dimensional look to the work. All right, and I'm deleting at all the areas that reject light, the nose, the eyebrows, all of that. And what we're left with is this. I don't want to change her complexion, so I'm reducing the opacity. I'm blending. And I'm going to pretty much limit the highlight to only the highest points of the face. So the high point of the cheeks, the highest point of the forehead. And so we're left with this extra push in the volume. Okay, so I don't want to change her complexion too much or make her white or anything like that if it's not supposed to be. Alrighty. And then I'm going to make the ears act like they are on the side of the face. They're not beside the face. Are your ears coming out of your cheekbone? No. So why do you have the ears and the cheekbone have the same value? That doesn't make any sense. So we're going to reduce the ears down to a different value so they can get out of the way. I'm going to actually redify that. Redden it. Oopsie. Let me do it and then I'll get a new layer. So I'm just reducing the ears down. And I'm going to delete only where I really believe that the ear might catch some light. So as you notice, I really use my layers to my advantage here. Maybe the top of the ears can get a little, the sides, but they should definitely not be this bright. It looks like the cheeks are, that's where the ears are coming from. We don't want that look. That doesn't look right. All right, and then I'm going to tuck down those little lobes of the ears into an edge and get them out of the way. Okay, so now we're getting slowly some more structure back each time. I'm going to add a bit of extra depth to the eye socket. Reddening that shadow. Okay, and then I'm going to build out the eyebrow bone. So the same thing, new layer, highlighter, low opacity, and I'm just building out the eyebrow bone. And then I delete. Okay, see that? So now we have a little bit of extra highlight on the eyebrow bone. All of this is the negative space. Everything I've painted today, apart from the eye socket, is the negative space of the face. But it's making the actual features look more complete. It's not just about the features, you guys. It's about those negative space areas that carry so much of the anatomy of the human face. In a new layer, darken, low opacity, almost full dark red brown. I'm pressing in a really barely visible, look at that, the very first brush of the radial shade sequence is actually almost invisible, but as you layer it, it auto blends. And I'm shrinking my brush as I auto blend because those lips were just coming out of nowhere. They had no contour to them. They had no spiraling contour to them. And so I needed to make sure that they do have that. First brush stroke, barely visible. Make sure it has red in it. If it doesn't have red in it, it'll look like she's just smeared a bunch of ash. If you have red in the shadow, it won't turn into an ashy tone or a tone that feels like it's muddy. You always need a bit of red. And so now the lips look like they're part of the face. Before, after, before, after. Negative space. I didn't do anything to the features. Other than the nose, obviously, I got rid of some lines, but that's it. I did no real repainting of features. Kratos Katara. So before, after. Do you guys see that difference? Just a little bit of negative space. So can anyone describe what I mean when I say negative space? Like, what does that mean? Positive space is where you have things that are happening. There's action, you know, like action, right? So the eyes are action, the nose, you know, all the detail and the colors and all of that madness. The negative space is pretty just, you know, flatlined. Nothing's really going on. There's no major important event happening in these spaces. It's the rest, areas of rest in the piece. Excellent. Negative space is areas of rest. So because you guys assume that there's nothing important going on, that there's no anatomy to worry about. And you've seen today there's a lot of anatomy to worry about. And it's okay. It's not bad, and it's not so much is going to confuse you, but there is a lot compared to the zero amount that we had in the before. But there is a lot. All right, and so I'm just going to get the pencil brush, and I'm going to just try to get the hair to feel like it's connected to the scalp a little bit better. And I think I'd like to correct the complexion. Though I think the complexion is fine, I'll still try to correct it so it doesn't feel too much like I whitewashed her or anything like that, if that's an appropriate term to use. And so I'm just using this local value right here. I'm going to saturate it, make sure I'm closer to the reds, and then and I'm just going to delete it anywhere where I have white or highlight. Just so I'm making sure her complexion still reads as like a darker skinned character. All right, so I'm not sure if that's too much of a jump from where we were. It's hard to tell what complexion the artist intended for because there wasn't any anatomy in those areas. So it's hard to know what their highlighter, what they thought a highlighter was. Do you know what I mean? So, so I can't quite decide how much darker to go. Sometimes it's the features as much as the skin tone that make a character look Asian. The nose being a little bit angular may need to be widened a little bit and flattened for her to look Inuit. I believe that's what they referenced for the southern and northern water tribes, is the Inuit peoples of northern Canada. And then I'm just going to make sense of this hair loopy, as Sokka likes to call them. Nothing makes me special. Even you have those hair loopies. I love Sokka. He's so pathetic. I relate to him. We all do. None of us are special. We're all just basic, just like Sokka. Can't jump off the side of a blimp on fire. What the heck? That final episode? Who can even do these things? But anyway, I love you, Sokka. I feel like watching it again. He was so funny. All right, so I'm just adding a little bit of like hair shine, just something like that. Hair shine, the secret to that is a curve. Make it into a curve. If you don't know what to do, curve it. All right, so make it into a curve. Hair shine here, curve it, just like that. Curve, curve. That's literally all hair needs from you. The problem is if you use dodge tool, it gives you a funny little saturation line right there. So you can just desaturate with sponge tool, or you can use the base tone on color. That'll get rid of a lot of that unnecessary saturation. Hair does saturate, but on the outskirts of the highlight, somewhere here and here. Okay. And then there's the shadow that you need of the hair loopies. So I'm just going to get a darkened layer on a generally fuzzy pencil brush of mine. And I'm just going to add a shadow for each hair loopy. And just making sure the shadow follows the contour of the face. Whenever you have stuff in front of the face that doesn't have a cast shadow, it just feels like you cut it out of a magazine. It doesn't feel natural or organic. And beside each one is going to be a little shadow. And I'm just gonna soften that shadow a bit. You can also redden that shadow. So just giving it more redness. And it really just depends on where this light source is coming from, but I feel like it's coming from, based off the nose, I feel like it's bending this way, but I'm just gonna break the rules a bit because I don't want a big shadow traveling across. The next thing and final thing I'm going to do is just the highlighter markers. You can use dodge tool for these since this is in between anime and realism. It's kind of borrowing from the beauty markers of both worlds. We can afford to use a rule-breaking highlight frequency, let's say. So look at how dodge tool highlights. It's insane. What you want to do is use that moderately because it tends to match. For some reason, dodge tool and this anime hybrid style tend to match. So what you want to do is be very, very graceful with it. Don't go crazy. Use it only in those areas that you feel like really catch the light. And let dodge tool kind of do its magic a little bit. But again, not so much that you've overdone it or that most of the highlighting is done with dodge tool for the entire process, because you're just throwing yourself a handicap at that point. You're going to be too reliant on it. You're not going to know how to climb highlights naturally as you go up. So again, I didn't get rid of all the shadows. Sorry, I didn't get rid of all the lines. I didn't try to recreate the style. I didn't make it too realistic or get rid of that anime classic beauty. But I do feel like it feels a little bit more realistic. Realism can support your style. It really can. It can kind of wake it up a little bit. So it isn't always so terrible to find that space in between. Another thing I want to do before I let you guys go is just get color and pick that lipstick color and use that same color on just the top of the cheeks, just there, just to give the cheeks a bit of extra blush or color of some kind. And a little bit on the upper eyelid. And a little bit in the eyes just to show that they're alive. Redness on the face isn't just about beauty and makeup. It's also about making it look alive. There's the bounce light on the lower half of the face. And I'm just going to blend that out. It just tends to wake up that beard shadow a little bit because there's always something from the floor bouncing back up and hitting our faces. So it ends up making it look three-dimensional, as you can see. I might add a little bit more climbing upward. Again, this is a new layer I can paint to my heart's content, not worrying about ruining anything because it's literally a new layer and I don't have to worry about it. I can use soft brush, radial shade. As you can see, the way I use layers is to like the maximum. I've really abused the layer system. Not abused, you know, used the layer system. So I'm just trying to find that middle ground where we get to keep your lines. Again, I'm not trying to replace your style or ruin the way you drew your character or undermine your style. Oh, my style is better than yours. No, I just want to find a middle ground where we can still have the realism and still have the style. Okay, and then honestly, I feel like I should stop here. There's not much else for me to do without reducing your lines and getting rid of them. Just to show you, though, how unimportant those lines are, I just will reduce them and then unreduce them. So I'll just get rid of them, leaving behind only an edge. Just let me show you how unimportant that line really is. All right, so I've used lighten and gotten rid of the line, and then I'm going to strengthen the edge of the chin on the neck. You're not going to miss the line. So here you've kind of, what I like about what you did is you highlighted all the shadows. And right now I'm just going to, again, in a new layer, make that line between those two edges sharper, raising the resolution in a way. That's all a line is. A line is an indicator for an edge. Write that down. Okay, and so we don't feel like we're losing a whole bunch of form or importance. But if it's stylistic, if it's some kind of artist that inspires you and you want to mimic what they do and you've noticed they keep their lines, by all means, do what you want to do. Just be aware. That's all I ask. Okay, so with the line, without the line, with the line, without the line. I feel like because you had the line, you don't need the shadow. What I'd like to do is just add a touch of shadow so that we actually do have the shadow of the neckline to some level. All right. So my aim is a little off. I think I'm just tired. All right, there we go. I think, no. Come on. Come on. Son of a... I can do this. Okay. And I'm just trying to find that edge. And then I'm going to shrink my brush and go deeper into one more level of shadow. Always looking back at this face. You see that three-dimensional result? By getting rid of that one line, we get so much back as a reward. So I guess I couldn't resist getting rid of the line. I tried. I really tried. And I'm just going to just clean up here. And so with the line flattened, looks a little rough, but I guess it's okay after without the line. I tried. I could not resist. Okay, so let's take a look at the before and after. Also, one thing you could do, maybe I'll do it after, is to just show some water drops, some glittering, maybe because she's, you know, she's a waterbender. So do something with that. Maybe an expression might help you. This expression is really, really plain and simple, and she's just kind of, you know, it's just a beauty glamour shot, really. So you might want to do something with her expression to give it more narrative force. So before, after. So we've got line reliance, of course, but also check out the negative space. The real the biggest part of the before and after is the fact that the nose and the cheeks now all have structure. I'm just adding some sharpness, I guess, because I use soft brush. So before, after, before, after. Do you guys see that difference? Wait, where is Katara's necklace? Oh, that's so true. Aileen Arun says the nose and cheeks now appear to protrude from the face. Exactly, and that's because of this shadow. This shadow is a leftover of this artist's line dependence and days using the line to draw characters, which is okay. We all started with anime. I mean, like most of us. And we all started with lines, all of us. That's what I'm talking about here, is that there's a point where you shed the line and replace it with something else. So this is a huge skill jump for stuff we did just in the negative space. Look at the features. I hardly changed them, apart from adding the eye sockets to the eyes, which were missing. Again, when I diagnose my students for private tutoring and find their skill and give them assignments, the first thing I look at in their homework is the eye sockets, and after that is core shadows. Then it's line presence and line reliance, but mostly that eye socket is the biggest giveaway. Because when a student can render and understand the structure of the eye socket, it shows that they have a sophisticated understanding of how that eye socket is formed, meaning that they have done enough form studies that they've built their way into that deepest part of the eye socket. So the eye socket is actually how I test the skill of a student. This little area right here. Is it present? Is it not? If you were my private tutoring student, I would assign a whole bunch of trace over diagrams for you. I would assign form studies, I would assign eye studies, and I would assign specifically eye socket studies. I would assign radial shading studies. Make sure you're understanding that you are applying a new layer of depth every time you shrink your brush. So those are the things that I would, and obviously trace over diagrams come hand in hand with sculpting. So if the student is really struggling showing the negative space of the face, it means they don't understand the grooves of the face. They don't imagine the nose as sticking out. Like, they forget that part. And so I would tell them, literally, some of my students are told to go get some clay or Sculpey and sculpt a head. It's going to change the way you paint. You're going to have this, like, fingertips are going to be tingling. You're going to know exactly what to do. You're going to feel like you're sculpting while you're drawing in 2D, which is an amazing sensation because it's no longer the paintbrush and the canvas. You're actually sculpting with the blocking brush, all because you just got some clay and you were just sculpting a face for the first time. Sculpting changes the way you appreciate the negative space of the face. So before, after, before, after. If you want to get at this level, it's just a matter of understanding the face is a combination of many different forms working together under the light. They're attached to each other under the light. The nose has a cylindrical, kind of like a geometric shape to it, a prism shape. The lips are cylindrical. The eyes have a socket that is also cylindrical of the brow bone attaching to the sphere of the eye. There are many things happening here in this painting, and a lot of the changes that I made have to do with the negative space and the form visible in that negative space. Does anybody have any questions before I close up shop? I don't think I have enough time. I'm a bit tired and my voice is fatigued after classes today. I'll do the 14-day challenge this Thursday, this 14-day challenge that I picked. And we can talk about that. I like to go in depth, as you can see, so it's hard for me to do speed runs sometimes, especially if I'm extra tired. And those cast shadows from the hair loopies really helped us make this feel more alive. But yeah, the water droplets are super easy to draw. You just kind of just make the water droplet shape, and you add the highlighter to it, and then you add wherever it's catching the light, the specular light that it might be catching. You just have to make sure there's a lot of transparency, but some glimmering, sparkling water, some bending, maybe a bit of expression on her face. You know, just something a little bit more angry, more Katara. Katara is very passionate. If you guys remember the play, the play on Ember Island, do you guys remember that? How they made her such a drama queen? I always laugh at that part. But she really is a drama queen. She's very dramatic. So, like, you know, sometimes a little bit of extra expression, an extra squint in the eyes might make her look a bit more fierce and Katara-like. So all of that might help you. Any questions? I'm currently between battles, finding a middle ground between the light and dark values I apply to my portraits. My values tend to lean more on one side, being too dark or not dark enough. So what I do when I feel like my values are all washed out, what I do, let's say I'm like right here, right? What I do is I go for the blackest black I can find just for a little while, and I apply it somewhere. And then I can see, wow, I am a far cry away from getting to the truest black. There's a lot of climbing I'm going to have to do to eventually reach the black. If you've added the black and it looks like it looks just fine because, well, the face looks like this, that is how you know you've used too much black too soon. Adding it in doesn't make a difference. So when you add that black in, you can tell it's washed out, meaning this painting right here, the before of it was washed out. So that's kind of something that I do. That's the quick tip I can give you with the time I have left. But post your work to the subreddit. If you guys want to submit your work, you can. I critique everyone, and the critiques are free in this stream. All you have to do is go to istebrak.com, click on this subreddit icon right here. If you want to join our Discord, you just have to click on the community tab, but click on this subreddit icon right here. Join us. This is where I picked up today's piece to look at. And I just pick from here at random whatever I feel like is relatable to the class and to the subject we covered. Thank you everyone for coming today. I'll see you guys next time at 5 p.m. Eastern this Thursday. And please like and subscribe and all that. I always forget to say that part. So before, after, a little bit of work on the negative space goes a long way. Any style can benefit from form applied at this level. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.